Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's good and great. And I lied to you. I lied earlier this week. Well, it's only Wednesday, so what was it, Monday? When I talked about the Cradle series, and I said I wasn't going to continue the series. I ended up continuing the series. And this isn't a review. I read book 5, and I've started on book 6 already. And I will review book 5, but I'll just wait and do it in 2 parts like I did. I did books 1 and 2 together and 3 and 4 together, so I'll wait and do a review of 5 and 6 as a one thing. But what I really wanted to talk about was how my reading enjoyment dramatically impacted my enjoyment. I mean, that seems patently obvious, right? But it took me reading book 5 to understand, okay, it wasn't that reading itself was a chore, just book 4 was a chore. And so what happened, book 4 in this series was like 340 some pages, and it took me 2 weeks to read it. Now, I read The Stand in like 8 days, 1,100, 1,200 page book in 8 days. It took me 2 weeks to read 300 and some pages because it was just not good. And as much as I try to be a very positive person, I try really hard not to crap on people. That book was bad. It was really bad. It was really just not good. And the story was bad, which is what I'm trying to say. The story was not good. Compound that with the less than polished writing, it made it worse, right? And I don't like crapping on people, especially people like this this author is making a living doing something that he absolutely loves, and he's sold thousands upon thousands of books, and that's awesome. That's really, really good for him. So I don't want to just shit all over somebody's dreams, because that's not fair. I mean, if book 4 was as bad as I perceived it, then he wouldn't have had, continued success. So it's obviously not as bad as it was to me, but it was not good. It was hard to get through. And it took me 2 weeks to read a 300-page book, which is something I normally can read in about 6 hours, or maybe 5 hours. Like, I read a little more than 50-some pages an hour. So 300 pages is a, say a 6-hour book for me. And it just was tough, and it took all of my enjoyment of the process of reading out of it. Like, I was just kind of like, ugh. Every time I opened the book, well, the Kindle, it was just like, I'm not interested. Like, I'm just so not interested. But I plowed through it because it, sunken cost fallacy says that I had already read the first 3 and I couldn't just not continue, and so I just did. I came on, I said I wasn't going to continue the series. I was looking for something else to read, and I had already picked out a couple of other series that I want to read and a couple of individual books, and I ended up just deciding, screw it, I already have the book 5 downloaded, I'll just read it. And I read it in 2 days. 2 sittings, essentially. Maybe 3 sittings. I think I took a break for dinner. Which is about right. It took me, it was 350 some pages, and it took me like a little over 5.5 hours, right? Which goes to show that I think book 3, if I actually went and looked at or book 4, if I went and looked at my reading time, I probably read slower. It probably was more like 8 hours of reading, as opposed to the 5.5 or so it took me to read the next book. And that means something, right? I don't know what it means, but I know that it means that there's been a lot of books that last year that I just didn't finish. I just decided I can't. And I think that's probably the right choice, right? In most instances, if a book is wearing on me, it's better to just not read it and read something that I'm enjoying. Because when I'm enjoying what I'm reading, I can plow right through things and have a blast. And I did enjoy book 5. Like, it was a really fun book. It was a fun book for a lot of the wrong reasons, and we'll talk about that when I review it, but that doesn't take away from what it is. Just a simple, fun, like, kind of popcorn read. Which is ultimately the kind of stuff that I want to write. So me being critical of this book series is kind of I'm being extra shitty because that's what I want to write. I don't want to write literary fiction. I'm not looking to write like amazing prose. I'm just looking to write like just fun stuff, right? But so I mentioned, I think the other day, that I fired up my Switch and I tried to play some video games and I couldn't get into that. I couldn't get into the book that I was reading. I just was kind of a loss. And I think a lot of it just had to do with, for one, I don't really have any video games right now that have really piqued my interest. I might pick up like Immortals Phoenix Rising soon. I still need to play Paper Mario, but I'm not gung-ho about video games right now. And the book that I was reading was dragging me down. So a lot of my perception of what I was enjoying was not that I was in a slump. It was that I needed to pick something up that was fun to read. And that's what book 5 did for me. So I am reading book 6. I'm like a third of the way through it already. I'll probably finish it tomorrow, and then we'll do a review tomorrow night or Friday or something like that. But the good news is, today is the last day of my quarantine. Tomorrow I can officially go back out into the world and experience life again. And I'm going to kick that off by taking my oldest kid to get a COVID test so that she can go back to work as long as it comes back negative. So, and that means I'll have the kids this weekend. I'll actually get to see my kids, and I miss them like freaking crazy. So much. So I get to hang out with them some finally after 2 weeks of not seeing them. I need my kids. It's driving me nuts. So, yeah. I went back and gave it a shot, and I'm glad I did. And I'm going to continue reading the series, and I'll at least do reviews for the first 8 books. I don't know that I'll continue after that. Probably, it's very likely that I'll completely forget about the series before the next book comes out. We'll see. I don't know. That's what I have for you today. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends, wonderful people. I appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is effrontery. It is a noun meaning to offend someone through inappropriate or aggressive behavior or audacious requests. Audacity. After doing a terrible job on the project, he had the effrontery to ask me, can I do extra credit? Effrontery. 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 That's interesting. He had the effrontery to ask me, can I do extra? I never heard that one. It's not an affront, it's an effront.